Hey, we've been doing this a while, about 7 years or so. We've been doing it a while, and I know the pushback. I've heard it. I hear people when they're like, hey, when we do Be Rich, I just need to tell you, I think that's weird. And I go, okay, that's fine. Or it makes me uncomfortable when we talk about being rich. And I think it's important that we talk about this and we keep coming back to this because of the fact that we live in a culture that is constantly telling us that we need to get rich, to get richer, to get more. I mean, who among us, and if you say no, here's the thing, I know you're lying. Who among us this year has not thought, man, we need to get some more money, because you go to the store and your bills are going up and your utilities are going up and your taxes are going up, and you go to the grocery store, and if you say that you have not thought this, and I know you're not telling the truth, we need more money. We need more money, and who hasn't thought us, I need to get rich to pay for everything. And so for those of you who thought this was how to get rich Sunday, I need to apologize. This is not that, and it won't ever be that here. Or, how do I get the blessings of God so I can get God's financial favor? Wrong place, wrong church, find another one. That won't work for you. But what we want to talk about is there are expectations about rich people. And in the Bible, Jesus talks about money more than he talks about anything else. But you and I avoid those verses because he talks about rich people and we go, oh, great, I don't have to worry about that because I'm not rich. So those verses don't apply to me. And so the reason we do this each fall is because of a statement that the Apostle Paul writes to Timothy. And Timothy is pastoring the church of Jesus Christ in Ephesus. And when he's in Ephesus, Paul writes this verse, this letter to Timothy, and he lets them know. He says in 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 18, he says, command them, the people of Ephesus, command the followers of Jesus in Ephesus to do good and to be rich. Because like in Ephesus, like here, everyone's trying to get rich, but nobody knows how to be rich. But tell them they need to be rich in deeds, in good deeds, and to be generous, and that they need to be willing to share. And the reason the Apostle Paul writes of this is because, like this, they're trying to get the people in this community, Ephesus, and we're going to talk about Ephesus for quite a while this morning, but they're trying to get the people in this time to realize something about themselves, because the people of Ephesus are no different than you and they're no different than me, which is they, at some point in their life, they cross the line from not rich to rich. And they didn't know it. And the reason they didn't know it, because that line, when you cross from not rich to rich, there's not a feeling that lets you know that you've crossed there. You don't feel rich. How many of you feel rich this morning? I mean, some of you will be like, I feel so rich with my family. Okay, that's wonderful, that's lovely, and it makes a great card. But you don't feel like, oh, I'm just loaded, right? And if you don't feel rich, you won't act rich. And this is why the Apostle Paul tries to bring some clarity for this. Because if you are rich, or if you know rich people, isn't it true you have a rich friend or you have a rich relative and you've watched them be rich and you look at them and you go, man, you are terrible at being rich. If I was rich, I'd be so much better at being rich than you are. Because there's expectations for rich people, right? They need to be generous. They need to give things away. You watch some of these people and you're just like, you're terrible at this. I'd be so much better. God, let me have money so I can show them how to do this, right? And all this. So the Apostle Paul starts this church in Ephesus. Jesus has died. Jesus has rose from the grave. Jesus has ascended into heaven. The Holy Spirit has come. And they have these words, go into all the world and preach the disciple, make disciples of all nations. And so the Apostle Paul takes those words extremely seriously. And he leaves. He heads north from Jerusalem. He heads around the Mediterranean rim. He has a dream about a man from Macedonia in Greece. And as a result, he gets up to Asia Minor in modern-day Turkey, and he turns left. He goes left. He heads west. And he starts going around the Mediterranean rim. And as he goes from town to town and village to village, he stops in each one of these towns. And basically the message is this: Rome killed Jesus. God raised him. Say you're sorry. So he'd go from Roman town to Roman town and say, you killed him. God raised him. Say you're sorry. And that was basically, in a very condensed message, the thing that he would go around the Mediterranean rim, and he's telling these people over and over and over and over about this. So he gets to this town in Ephesus. And when he gets to Ephesus, Ephesus is a port town right on the on the western side of Turkey, modern day Turkey. It's on the western side. It's about, it shares the Aegean Sea with Greece. And so we have this port town there. Today, it's not a port because it has a river that goes through Ephesus. And the silt over the last several hundred years, the silt had pushed in and filled this riverbed. So there's about a 2-mile gap from the actual Mediterranean now to the port city of Ephesus. But as a result of that, the city was abandoned. So it hasn't been destroyed. They haven't built a bunch of stuff on top of it like they've done in Rome and Constantinople and all these other towns. So it was abandoned. So you have all of these ruins there. And when he gets there, he shows up. And when he arrives in Ephesus, they have this massive monument to the Greek goddess Artemis. It's one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, this temple that they have to the god in Artemis. Now today there's just one pillar that remains from Artemis. There's another pillar that has made its way to Austria, like much of the artifacts in Ephesus. It's in Austria. And so there's this huge temple that was regarded, and people would come to worship the god of Artemis from around the known world. They would come to this town of Ephesus, this city really, and they would worship Artemis. This summer, my family and I, we had this unbelievable opportunity because someone was rich and helped share for us to go visit this. We had the opportunity to go visit Ephesus. Ralph, go ahead and put this one up a little early. And so my daughter, unfortunately, was super sick when we got to Ephesus, like really, really sick. She had some travel sickness. And so my wife and Emerson weren't able to go on this portion of the trip because they were super sick, so they were in a cafe kind of hanging this out. So it was just me and my 2 boys hanging out with an archaeologist who had worked on the site for many years, and he had retired, and now he was giving tours. So we're with an archaeologist, and he says basically there's about 20% of the city that has been excavated, and we've kind of known and learned about this. So we're just basically, I gotta be honest, we're geeking out with like Indiana Jones, going through this archaeological city and walking down. So we're walking down this city, which is in marble ruins, and you can see there's even on the road there, you can see some marble stones that are in really good shape and some that aren't. The ones that aren't in good shape are the ones that they've tried to replace, and they didn't do it the same way that the original Romans began to do this. So we begin to go, and it's absolutely surreal. And as we're going down the street, I want to know, what is it about these people who lived here so many years ago that the Apostle Paul is adamant where he writes this verse, command them. Now, in years past, we've kind of, said stuff like, you don't think you're rich, even though your car sleeps in the garage and all that. Okay, we're scrapping all that this year. I want to know what these people was going on in their life. What was going on in their world? What was this? And I wanted to know for myself, because have we missed something in this passage that we've said year after year after year about the people of Ephesus? Why did these rich people need a command to be rich? So here we went. So 27 years before the birth of Jesus, Emperor Augustus makes this one of the capitals of the Roman Empire in Asia Minor because of its strategic port. And as a result of it being one of the capitals of the Roman Empire, in fact, this was the second most important city after Rome. And so after he does this, the seat of the governor for the entire region is now in Ephesus. It becomes a major center of commerce for the region. As a result, they have this newfound wealth that shows up. So they have multiple Roman baths that we were able to see that are down there. They had aqueducts that are now coming into these complex system, and they had at least 6 that supplied water to various parts of the city. There's probably about 200,000 people that are living in the city about the time that Paul is there. And these aqueducts not only supply water to the city, but they also have found remnants where they have like sawmills, water mills and sawmills, but a sawmill for marble that is powered by these aqueducts. So thanks to AI, we have this. This is what AI has reconstructed, what that street would look like during the regular part of this. And so this city is impressive. And you walk down Main Street towards the port. This is up and you're walking straight down, and I'm telling you that marble is super slippery, right? It's really slippery. In fact, there was an ambulance helping somebody. I didn't see what happened, but they bit it. And it's hard, right? It's really hard. And so what you have that you can see in this picture, in the bottom are all the merchants, and they're selling their stuff. So it's like old downtown America where you have people that would sell, their shops were in the bottom, they would live above. And so it's no different in Ephesus. And so we see this where you have all of these people, and this is like the wealthy neighborhood, that main street that goes down. It's the neighborhood where you go trick-or-treating because you're like, that's where all the big candy bars are gonna be at, is on the street. Because those people have so much money, they don't even know about the snack sizes. They do this. So these business owners are wealthy, and so you can see even here, this is one of the floors, and the architect poured water on it, and he said, look at how vibrant and brilliant the colors of the mosaic tiles that were in the homes of the people who lived there. And so when Paul communicates this to people, I mean, there's baths, right across the baths where this area down where the really wealthy people live. There's baths, and then right next to it is a brothel. And how do you know it's a brothel? Because the Latin word for sex in English and in Latin is the same word, and you go, oh yeah, okay, sure, right? And so you have these people that had more money than they know what to do with. You had wealthy people, and the city is known for people coming from all around to worship this god Artemis. And Artemis has a twin sister, Apollo, and their dad is Zeus. And so this is one of those goddesses of mythology, and their chief business, one of the chief businesses beyond the merchants getting stuff from the port, beyond the trade business that was there, was selling little miniature figurines of the goddess of Artemis. Big business. So they would sell these. So when in Acts, we go back to Acts, when Paul visits Ephesus for the first time and he decides to start a church here, we have this great dialogue in Acts 19 where the Apostle Paul tells us when he shows up and he's getting ready to start with his spiel, Rome killed him, God raised him, say you're sorry. This is what he found when he arrives in the city of Ephesus, and it's recorded by Luke in Acts 19, verse 24. So there's a silversmith named Demetrius who lives in town, and if you're a silversmith, just like today as it was then, obviously you're a wealthy guy. He made silver shrines of Artemis, and he brought in a lot of business. Artemis brought in a lot of business for the craftsmen there. So he calls all of them together along with the workers in the related trades, and he says this, and this is Demetrius who's doing this. He says, my friends, we receive a good income. What is he saying? We're rich, we have more than we need from this business of selling these miniature figurines, these silver statues of the goddess of Artemis, and we are doing really, really well for ourselves. We have more than we need. And did you see here, this is such a great, I love this story. And you see and hear how this fellow Paul, the Apostle Paul, he's entered into our town, and he has led astray a large number of people here in Ephesus and in practically the whole province of Asia, because he keeps yapping about there's no such thing as a God that's made by human hands. And he's going from town to town saying, your gods are fake. Gentlemen, this is bad for business. He's going to hurt our business. So essentially, if you're trying to figure out what this looks like, it would be essentially like going to Disney World and yelling around all day at Disney World, Mickey Mouse isn't real. Mickey Mouse isn't real. And finally, people stop buying Mickey Mouse products because the Apostle Paul's there telling him, Mickey's not real, it's a made-up cartoon mouse. And people are getting mad going, you're going to kill our sales. You've got to go. Same thing happens here. So let's jump down to verse 28. When they heard this, Paul, you are bad for business. It may be good for our soul, but you're bad for business. So soul, dollars, you got to go. They were furious and began shouting, great is Artemis of the Ephesians. This is our goddess. And soon the whole city is in an uproar. And the people sees Gaius and Aristarchus, and if I got that wrong, talk to Dr. Thompson after, he'll help you with that. I don't know. It's got a lot of letters. And Paul's traveling companions from Macedonia, and all of them rushed into the theater together. And Paul's like, well, let's get in front of these people. He wants to appear before the crowd, but the disciples would not let him. Even some of the officials of the province said, friends of Paul sent him a message begging him, Paul, don't go into the theater. All right, well, let's take a look at the theater. So this is the theater in Ephesus. Seats about 25,000 people. And Paul decides, hey, there's an audience gathering. I should preach a message. If I could just have the opportunity to explain to these people that their goddess Artemis is fake, then they'll all be so thankful that I shared that with them, that they're all going to pray and accept Jesus, and we're going to, take an offering and sing a song. It's going to be awesome. So this is what the temple looks like thanks to AI. This is what people think this would have looked like. So let's go to the next one there. Yeah, so this is a massive theater in Ephesus. Well, let's jump now. Let's keep reading in our story of Acts 32. So that huge theater was in complete confusion. Some people started shouting. So imagine 25,000 people yelling different things, and they're all mad. And then you have some people that don't even really know what's going on, but they're like, ooh, look, we're chanting. Let's join. Some were shouting one thing, some another. Look at this. Most of the people did not even know why they were there. Something's happened in the theater. Let's go. Why did they all do that? Well, there wasn't Netflix, so let's go see what's happening. And so the Jews in the crowd pushed Alexander to the front, and they shouted instruction to him, and he motioned for silence in order to make this defense before the people. But when they realized that Paul realized he was a Jew, they all shouted in unison for about 2 hours, or not Paul, this the other guy that was there. Alexander's a Jew. Paul was a Roman. When they realized, even though he was a Jewish scholar, they said when they shouted in unison for about 2 hours, great is Artemis of the Ephesians. So 25,000 people are chanting for 2 hours. Great is Artemis the Ephesian. Great is Artemis the Ephesian. Yelling, screaming, shouting. So Paul sees these people getting wealthy, selling souvenirs, and he gets mad. So now imagine you're at Disney World, and if you've ever been to Disney World, when you leave Disney World, there's like the largest Disney shop on the planet Earth before you leave, so that if you have any money left in your wallet by the end of the day, you make sure it's not there by the time you walk out of the park. So now imagine the Apostle Paul in there, and every item in that little shop has some sort of Mickey Mouse emblem. I mean, you can buy anything you want with Mickey Mouse. You can buy measuring cups and teaspoons for your house, rolling pins, whatever you need with Mickey Mouse on it. It's there in that. And now picture the Apostle Paul standing on a table at the Mickey Mouse gift shop before you leave Disney World, yelling at people that this is all fake, and it's all made up, and everybody in here is worshiping a God made by human hands. Well, it wouldn't take long for what? Security's going to show up, and he's going to get escorted right on out of the park, which is what happened in Ephesus. And thankfully for Paul, he was a Roman citizen, so they couldn't arrest him. So they kind of took him over, and there's a little hill just to the left of the port. When you're leaving the port and you begin to go off, there's a little hill, and that's where they pretty much put Paul in timeout. He didn't go to prison there. He spent plenty of other time in prison, but not in Ephesus. He had a little timeout. Go chill out, buddy. You're all amped up. You're crazy, man. And so some years pass. The Apostle Paul is now in Rome. And when he's in Rome, he writes this letter to Timothy. Timothy is now the pastor of the church that was started in Ephesus. So there were several people in Ephesus that said, Paul, I think you're right. That makes a lot of sense. We can't be worshiping a God that's made by human hands. You're right. The logic on that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't seem logical. And we've put our trust and faith in the person of Jesus Christ. And so this church is started. And Timothy is the pastor of this church. The Apostle Paul's in Rome, and he writes this letter to Timothy. And basically it's like, Timothy, I think I came on a little strong when I was in Ephesus. I don't know if I had the best approach talking to the people of Ephesus. So why don't you try this approach instead? And he's writing to his mentor. He's writing to the guy he's mentored. Timothy was being mentored by Paul. He says, why don't you try this? They need to learn how to be rich. That city has more money than they know what to do with. They're already rich. They just don't know how to act rich. And so when you're walking down Main Street and you pass the neighborhood that everybody wants to live in, and because they know they've arrived, if they can live in that neighborhood and have that address, where everyone thinks if you can get a house and live and have your business on that street and that address, then you've made it, because that's what it means and that's what it looks like to be rich. He says when you see them, you're going to need to help them understand that they already have more than they need. And in this chapter, right after in Acts, after we have this whole thing where the Apostle Paul gets in front of a huge crowd and they all start, he's yelling and they're yelling, and no, Artemis the Great, and if God of the Ephesians, and he's like, no, that's fake, you fakers, and that's helpful. The next chapter after that, the Apostle Paul quotes Jesus in Acts chapter 20. And he begins to articulate words of Jesus, and he repeats words of Jesus, which he often does. And he says it's more blessed to give than to receive. And Jesus says so much more about money than he even does sin and other areas of our life. And it's not because Jesus needs or wants your money. He says it, and he does it for your happiness. He does it for your happiness. He's not after your stuff. Because the practice of generosity is not just the right thing to do, it's a pathway to happiness. And materialism, the collection and accumulation of stuff, makes us a slave to two things: debt, and then we have stuff. And stuff needs what? Storage, a place. Stuff is complicated, right? You got to dust it. You got to clean it. You got to wash it. You got to look after it. You got to fix it. It breaks. It's all kinds of things. And so the Apostle Paul is trying to say, Timothy, I know Ephesus. I've lived in Ephesus. I've been a part of Ephesus. I know the people of Ephesus. You're pastoring there, and you're going to need to command these people, because they're not going to intuitively go, oh man, I didn't even know we were rich. Thanks so much for telling me. And I even think we're the same way, because I don't think anyone right now is like going, Paul, thank you so much for that cultural and historical biblical lesson. Now I realize I am rich. It doesn't happen here either. Why? Why do we not feel rich? Well, it's because we still have stress and pressure. We have stress and pressure. A lot of times it's because of financial situations or financial future, and we have stress and pressure will never allow us to feel. And so we're chasing, we chase, hoping we can cross that line. We are chasing and working and saving to try to investing, trying to cross the line from not rich to rich. And you keep telling yourself, and I know you tell yourself this because I keep telling myself this, and be rich may be as much for me as it is for you each and every year. I keep telling myself, well, but we have these bills, and we have inflation, and we have gas prices, which oddly enough are better right now. And then we have, and all of these things are keeping us from being rich, isn't it? It's keeping us from being rich. And if we just didn't have all those things that keep climbing and climbing and climbing, and so what we have in our country and in our culture, we don't know how to be rich because we're so focused on trying to get rich. Now, to be sensitive, I know we do have people here. Some of you are out of work, and some of you are upside down financially, and I understand that, and we get that we have issues. But the majority of people in this room are doing okay. And you've crossed the line. And you need to learn how to do some things differently. So, if you're uncomfortable or upset or angry with me today when we talk about this, I always want to ask, why? Why are you upset? Why are you angry? And why are you uncomfortable? So maybe we need to say this one more time again this year. I have more than I need. I'm rich. Now, if I force you to say that, it's going to feel weird, and you may go along with it just because you're like, well, peer pressure, I don't want to be the one person that doesn't say it, right? So you have that going on. But most likely it's going to stir something inside of you that goes, well, this is just not true. Let's just try it real quick. Let's all say this together. I'll repeat it and then we'll say it, okay? I have more than I need. I am rich. Let's all say it. Ready? I have more than I need. I am rich. You got a little twinge in your heart a little bit? Like, but I don't. I mean, I said it because you made me. And there's cameras, so I don't want to have somebody watch that back. Now, if you're a Christian, if you're a Christ follower, you have to say something a little bit different. If you're not a Christian, then yes, this doesn't apply to you. But if you are a Christian, you need to say this. God has blessed me with more than I need. I am rich. Let's try that one on. God has blessed me with more than I need. I am rich. A couple years ago, somebody asked me, are you rich? And I said, no, of course not. Of course I'm not rich. I know rich people, though. Yeah. And I've had to repent. And I think I've had such a hard time with money because I think there's such guilt associated with wealth. Like if your needs are met, there's almost like a guilt component to it. And the reason you don't need to feel guilty is you didn't ask to be born here, you didn't ask to live here, you didn't ask for the opportunities that have been given for you. Now, these opportunities were given to you. And if someone gives you something, your response when someone gives you something is gratitude. You need to be grateful because you have been blessed. Generosity is not something God does, it's who God is. So every year we read a letter from Timothy, and I want to read that as we wrap up here this morning. 1 Timothy chapter 6. For you and I, we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. Those who want to get rich, they fall into temptation and a trap and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money, not money, the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. Let's jump down to 17. Paul's instructions to Timothy. So, Timothy, command those who are rich when you walk down those streets of Ephesus and you see the merchants and you see them selling silver. Command them who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant or to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. Command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. In this way, they will lay up treasure for themselves as a firm foundation for the coming age so that they may take hold of the life that is truly life. So over the next few weeks, we've translated that and we've come up with 3 simple words. Give, serve, love. That's what the Apostle Paul commanded to do that. And this is how it works. And if you're new here, I'll explain it. If you're not new here, then you're like, oh boy, here we go again. Every year, we have expectations of how rich people should act, and rich people should write big checks. Rich people should write big checks. They should help organizations that are crushing it. So every year, we scour our community looking for organizations that we think are just knocking it out of the park, and we don't ask for board seats. We don't ask for influence. We believe here in no strings attached generosity, which means we want to write big checks to our community because that's what rich people do. Rich people are supposed to write big checks. So what we do on one Sunday a year, and this is this day, and so if this is your first time year, you can tell the person that invited you, seriously, you could have warned me. Okay, that's fair. We all give $39.95. And the reason we give $39.95 is because we've all bought something on Amazon for $39.95 and we don't even know what it is anymore, and we don't even know where it's at, and we don't even know if it works anymore. And this is $39.95 that we're going to practice being rich together in the community. So we just ask, and we don't have a dollar amount. We don't have a goal that we're going to raise this much money today. We don't have that kind of goal. We have a goal that you're going to give $39.95. Each one of us here today, $39.95, and we're going to practice being rich. And we don't have a dollar goal, we have a participation goal. And it's my job every year to try to get us as close to 100% participation as possible. And we don't have any gimmicks for that either. I just ask. And then we give 100% of that away. There's no inflation, it's still $39.95 here. There's no handling fees. There's no dollar service ticket fee to this. None of that. It's just a participation thing because we have expectations, because this is what Jesus told. The Apostle Paul picked it up. Paul told Timothy the same thing, for how rich people should act. And so we need to do this because we've been commanded to do this. And so we want to bless some organizations in our community by being generous to them and writing them some big checks. So as service concludes, and you're going to get to know some more, I want you to be prepared to give $39.95 so that we can continue to explore how to give, how to serve, how to love, because this is how we practice being rich. So, are you guys ready to meet this year's partners? Let's watch.
Welcome to Be Rich 2024. Through this annual generosity campaign, we are able to come alongside nonprofits we believe in and invest in the powerful, life-changing work they do each and every day. We're excited to share with you our 2024 Be Rich partners. The mission of River Valley Special Recreation Association is to provide year-round recreation, leisure activities, and life skills that add to the quality of life for those who participate and their families. Through these opportunities, participants with special needs are empowered to try new adventures and create friendships with others throughout our community. Over this past year, the association was able to provide 140 programs for ages 6 and up. By supporting River Valley Special Recreation Association through their foundation, we will provide financial support for their athletic programming. The financial undertaking for an athlete to compete in athletic events outside of our community is significant. Be Rich funding would also help increase the scholarship amount that can be awarded to each family per year. Right now, a participant can be awarded a maximum amount of $100 per year. We want to help ease the financial burden for these participants and their families. Meal packing through Lifeline Christian Mission provides nutritious meals both locally and globally to children and families who are impacted by hunger and malnutrition. Money given through Be Rich will go towards our Serve Day on October 19th, where we will pack meals for those struggling with hunger in the United States. A meal of rice and veggies will help give stability to these families who are living in uncertainty and spark hope for their future. When a healthy meal is given in Jesus' name, that can change everything. We are excited to imagine the difference we can make, individually and collectively, as we join together to be rich.
Well, it is an honor to sit down with these organizations and hear their heart and their mission and their dreams for the future. And we always ask them, what is your big dream? And last year we partnered with Love a Latte, and you may remember that their mission is to provide job training opportunities to those with special needs. And they shared with us that their big dream, one of them, was to create a brick and mortar location for them to sell their coffee and other products. Well, earlier this year, that big dream came true, and you were part of helping make that happen when you gave your $39.95. And they invited our staff to a soft opening, and they advertised it as donation only. So a few of us showed up, and after we ordered our lattes and they handed them to us, they didn't expect any money in return. But instead, we handed them a $100 check. And the squeals of excitement and the look of surprise on their faces was worth every penny. And it was so impactful for us to represent you in that moment and to share with them your generosity. So this year, in addition to the organizations you saw on the video, we are going to provide more of what we call spontaneous blessings this year. We want to provide more of the shock and awe generosity we were able to provide Love a Latte throughout the year. Since we partnered with other organizations in Be Rich since 2017, we have partnered with 16 nonprofit organizations, and you have helped us give away over $200,000. And that is a big deal because all the money that you give and the time that you serve makes an impact on others' lives. So today, as Pastor Paul mentioned, we don't have a monetary goal, we have a participation goal. A goal of 100% participation where we give 100% of that money away. It's about coming together to make a difference. So as you leave here today, we have multiple ways for you to give. Right now in the back of the room, there's volunteers who are ready and trained to help you give your $39.95 or more by your debit or your credit card. You can identify them by their Give, Serve, Love t-shirts and their red balloons. If you've come ready to give cash or check, you can head out these doors into the lobby and look for the green balloons. You can also give by texting GPGIVE to 97000 or by scanning the QR code on the back of the seat in front of you. We've made it as easy as we know how for you to be generous today. So I invite you now, go and be rich. You're dismissed.